Okay, so we're back, and okay, so we're back. I am James again, and welcome to the continuous, continuation, continuation, or proofs, and we're going to have the yes, um, from this what do you call this? Okay, so hindi nyo alam what is contradiction and what is tautology. Okay, so by this, we're going to define this too, tautology and contradiction. So it connects on the module 8, the symbolic arguments and yung sa premise and conclusion. Okay, as you can even remember. Okay, so there are two ways to validate the data or validate the logic. If it is tautology and or contradiction. When we say tautology, pag sinasabi natin tautology, this statement or the conclusion will always be true. Okay. If the tautology, if pag sinasabi natin tautology, yung mga premise niya is all true, na all true, and also the conclusion is also true. Ano, not all premise are true, na mayroon din false, but the important is the conclusion is always true. Kaya, if makikita mo sa conclusion na yan, if ang premise is may true, false, false, true, false, true, false, true, if yung conclusion is merong always true, like lahat ng conclusion is true, then it's tautology. Pag sinasabi natin contradiction, this would be always be false. Okay, ito yung opposite ng tautology. If may isa sa kanila is false, then the result will always be false. Okay, okay. Ulitin ko. Pag sinasabi nating tautology sa logic, na pag sinasabi na tautology, all the conclusions must be true. Okay? Always sa conclusion, true siya. Or yung result na conclusion is all true. That's why the result would be tautology. Pag sinasabi natin contradiction, it is not always false. No? Ano? Kung sinasabi natin contradiction, yung if merong isa sa conclusion, if isa sa result ng conclusion is merong false, therefore, always false siya. That's why contradiction siya. Okay? Pag may isang false, definitely all of them are false. Yung result lang is false. Okay, parang takon-takon lang yan. So, okay, explain ko sa inyo. There might be statements which really cannot be rephrased as implications. For example, square root of 2 is irrational. In this case, it is hard to know where to start. What can we assume? Well, say we want to prove the statement P. What if we could prove that not P implies Q, where Q was false? If this implication is true and Q is false, what can we say about not P? It must be false as well, which makes P true. This is why proof by contradiction works. If we can prove that not P leads to a contradiction, then the only conclusion is that not P is false, so P is true. That's what we wanted to prove. In other words, if it is impossible for P to be false, then it must be true. Okay, ang goal niya dito, ito. If not P leads to a contradiction, which is B false, there would be P is false. In short, if imposible sa P, no, if the ordinary P lang, not, hindi yung not P, okay? If impossible sa P na ma-false siya, no, yung ma-false na result, therefore, always true yung P. Or could be must P must be true. If impossible na ma-false yung letter P. Okay, tricky? Okay, basta sa contradiction, always false siya. Okay, sa logic. If isa sa kanila is false sa conclusion, sa result na conclusion, therefore, always false siya. Okay? For example, I will give you an example. So let's say P um, implies Q uh, not Q or not Q. Parang ganyan. So we have true, true, false, and false. Then we have true and false. Then sa P implies Q, ito yung P, ito yung Q. If P implies Q, tapos not Q, tapos ito yung dalawa, sa dalawa na to. So, sa P implies Q, that would be true, false, true and true. Then sa not Q is false and true. False and true, yes. Then sa P implies Q or not Q, so we have false. Tama ba? Wait, so that was the maximum. So true, true, okay, true and true. So ito, okay. So as you can see, okay, I will have the example para maintindihan nyo. Wait lang guys ha. Para maintindihan nyo what is the contradiction, what is the difference of contradiction and tautology. So, okay. So dito, if we have P implies Q or not Q, so we have the assertion of P and Q. No? So we have true and false and false. And sa Q is true and false. Sa P implies Q, okay, ito yung ipapakita ko lang sa inyo what is tautology and contradiction. Sa P implies Q, that would be true, false, true, true. And sa not Q naman, we have false and false and true. Since we have P implies Q or not Q, diba? So we're going to have the maximum value, which is probably true. So true, 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 and true. So there's a premise. Ito yung premise niya. Ito yung premise. Okay? So we're going to find all true. Tama ba? All true ba to? No. Ito yung parang niya, yung ganitong dalawa. So, pagdating sa conclusion, all true sila. So therefore, that would be tautology. Tautology yung result. Ganito. Pero, pag sinasabi natin P implies Q and not Q. So therefore, we have false. Okay. Ito para malaman natin. So ito lahat would be tautology. Pag sinasabing tautology, all the conclusions, all the results of the conclusion are true. Kaya tautology siya. How about, let's say, P implies Q and not Q? So we have false, 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 and true. Seems that is isa lang yung true and all of the members are false, then it leads to a contradiction. Ah, okay. So, it is connected to logic, diba? Logical reference, diba? So, that implies that we are going to need to prove by contradiction. Dito. So, for, okay, okay, wait. Okay, so proof by contradiction, ito yon, no? So, if all the conclusions are true, then it is tautology. If all, not all conclusions are false, or isa sa kanila is false, or all conclusions are false, then it leads to a contradiction. Gets? Okay, gets? So, yan. Pero yung totoo talaga is, if um, all results are false, then it leads to contradiction. Or may isa sa kanila is false, then it leads to a contradiction pa rin. Ng same. So, let's have proof this one. Prove that square root of 2 is irrational. So, it seems we're all tricky where to start. Di ba? So, tricky tayo where to start. Paano natin ipoprove ito that square root of 2 is an irrational number? No? So, we're going to think on what is it about. So, many of you are very, um, what do you call this? Um, are very tricky on this. No, wait. Yes, are very tricky on this. Okay, are very tricky on this. So, since we're going to prove, or we're going to, yes, we're going, tawag nito, mahirap saan magsimula, di ba? So, we're going to have let them be. So, paano natin i-contradict natin to? So, we're going to have the opposite of irrational. So, let square root of 2 be, or let's say, an element of a rational number. Ano, Q pala. Q means rational number. And let P over Q be a reducible fraction, or shall we say, be a lowest term. Okay, then equal siya kay square root of 2. So, in solution, we are going to have square root of 2 equals to P over Q. Di ba? Okay, so P over Q is irreducible, or a reducible fraction, or in lowest term. So, ito. So, now, how we're going to get this? So, after that, we're going to square both sides to remove the square root sign. So, we have 2 is equal to p squared over q squared. Then multiply, so we have 2q squared equal to p squared. Then after that, we have to let p equal to 2n, so that to remove 2 in here. So we have 2n quantity squared, so we have 2q squared equal to 4n squared. Then divided by 2 both sides, so we have q squared equal to 2n squared. So q is equal to 2n squared. So how are we going to get this? So by proportion, No? Okay, this is the first step. Ito na naman yung bago. So, by proportion, so if we let 2 equal to p squared over q squared, no? So, we let p squared as 2q squared over 2n squared. Then we have 2 divided by 2 both sides. So, we have q squared over n squared. Then after that, kailangan nating i-reduce to get the proper way. So it seems that p squared over q squared is equal to q squared over n squared. So meaning, since p is not in lowest terms, it leads to a contradiction. Lead na siya to a contradiction. Thus, therefore, square root of 2 is irrational. Bakit nagiging irrational siya? It's because if we're going to need to bring this fraction in a lowest terms, magiging square root of 2 ulit siya. Diba? Pero kailangan nating irrational to. Seems that Q, seems that we're going to have the lowest terms, kailangan nating i-reduce ito into a simplest form. Okay. Pero dito, by a proportion, it seems that we're not going to reduce. No? It seems not in lowest term siya. Then it leads to a contradiction. That square root of 2 is probably an irrational number. That's why ganyan. Wait lang ha. Okay. So, that probably that leads to a contradiction. So, ganyan. No need to para hindi kayo malito. Okay, ulitin ko ha. We're going to prove that square root of 2 is irrational. So, it seems that square root of 2 is irrational talaga. We're going to prove that. So, instead of irrational, we're going to be the element of irrational number, the square root of 2. Then p over q be a lowest term. Okay? Or it could be a reducible fraction. Then, probably dito, we're going to have to square both sides to remove the square root or the radical sign. So it becomes 2 is equal to p squared over q squared. Then multiply this q squared to 2 or cross multiply both sides. So we have 2q squared equal to p squared. So ito yung value ni p, 2q squared. Seems para makuha si q squared, let p equal to 2n. So we have 2q squared equals to 2n squared. Then we have 2q squared equal to 4n squared. Then down dito. Divide both sides by 2 para makuha si q squared. And we have q squared equal to 2n squared. So nakuha na natin si p squared, nakuha na natin si q squared. So how we're going to do that? By proportion. So we have 2 equal to p squared over q squared as indicated in this form equal yung value ni p squared, that would be 2q squared over value ni q squared which is 2n squared. Then divided both sides by 2 kasi pwede siya ma-divide. So we have q squared over n squared. Seems that this must be reduced, no? So what we're going to do? So we're going to square root both sides. Okay? Going to get square root both sides para ma-reduce siya. But as you can see that it seems that it is an irreducible fraction man or not in lowest term siya. Therefore, it leads to a contradiction that square root of 2 is not an element of a rational number. So therefore, we conclude that square root of 2 is an irrational number. And that's it. Okay? So I hope magets niyo. Okay. So the other proportion, okay, we are going to prove that there are no integers x and y such that x squared is equal to 4y equal plus 2. So, okay, so we're going to get the opposite one. So it seems dito, there are no integers x and y, so we're going to let x and y, let x and y be integers. So let x and y be integers. So we have x squared equals to 4y plus 2. It seems that this form is factorable. So take out 2 as a common factor, then we have quantity of y plus 1. No, 2y plus 1. 2y plus 1, x squared. And we let this as p equal to 2y plus 1. So we have x squared equals to p. Okay? Para in a simple form siya. It seems that these are even, no, even fraction siya. Ano ba ba? Even number siya. So we let x be equal to 2x. Ano, 2n. Tama ba? Yes, we let x equal to 2n. So, para ma-same sila. So, we have 2n quantity squared equal to 2p. So, we have 4n squared equal to 2p. Then, we get the value of p. We have 2n squared equal to p. Okay. Okay. So, ulitin ko. Prove that there are no integers x and y such that x squared is equal to 4y plus 2. Meaning, hindi involves integers sa equation na to. Parang ganyan lang, di ba? Okay, so instead we're going to let no integers, so we're going to let x and y be integers. Okay, so we have x squared equals y or y plus 2. Then we take out the common factor 2 as x squared equal to 2 times 2y plus 1. Now, this 2y plus 1, we are going to let that as p para in a simplest form siya. So we let p equal to y plus 1 so that x squared equal to p para in a simple form siya. So it seems that there are even numbers, no, even sila, then we let x as 2n. Kasi even numbers sila, di ba? So we let x as 2n. So we have 2n quantity squared equals 2p. Then we have n for n squared is equal to 2p divided by 2. It's because they have a common factor 2 para ma-isolate si p. So we have 2n squared equal to p. Then after that, no, so we have 2n squared equal to p na siya. Diba? Then, we let, okay, let na naman tayo. So let 2y plus 1 equal to p. So, si 2y plus 1 yung isa substitute kay p. So we have 2n squared equals 2y plus 1. Okay. See the difference? Okay. So ito, substitute, kung dito, we're going to substitute, we're going to assign p as equal to 2y plus 1. Tapos dito, seems that in the simplest form naman sila, so we're going to let 2y plus 1 equal to p. So ganito, magiging 2n squared is equal to 2y plus 1. So it seems the left side is even and the right side is odd. Therefore, it is not equal. Kasi even ang isa, odd din isa. So how we're going to do that? Therefore, it leads to a contradiction. Kasi hindi sila equal. Ito even, ito odd. Diba? Therefore, okay, it leads to a contradiction that There must not be any integers x and y such that, pasensya na sa sulat ko, x squared is equal to 4y plus 2. And that would be that. Okay, it seems tricky, but if you're going to substitute that, no, no, so we have, for example, n is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0. So let us see. So 2n squared, so 0 squared plus is equal to 2 times 0 plus 1. So 0 squared is 0 times 2. 0 equal to 0 times y, 0 times 2, 0 plus 1, 1. So 0 is not equal to 1. So odd and even. So this is equal talaga. Okay? And that would be equal for this. Okay? So I hope magets ninyo. And it will probably tricky talaga. But if you have the understanding by basics no, dito, then you will get it. Okay? So that we all for today. And for the next video, we will going to tackle about proof by cases. That's all and good day.